The armor had calculated every possible outcome. It had measured threats, predicted movements, and protected its warrior for generations. Then an ordinary human soldier made a decision the system could not understand. Metal groaned beneath collapsing structures. Warning lights burned across fractured armor, and a Valkyrie commander faced a choice where every option carried a cost. The answer was not hidden in greater power, but in what the machine failed to see. Welcome to Galactic Contact. Now, let's begin the story of the human who revealed the weakness inside the galaxy's greatest defense system. The first anomaly appeared before the first casualty. Lyra Vare noticed it because her armor did not react. That was unusual. The Valkyrie combat system was built to identify threats before they became events. Motion changes, pressure shifts, energy fluctuations. Every piece of information entered the prediction model and returned a tactical response. This time, the response came late. Only 0.6 seconds. Small enough to ignore, large enough to matter. The outer defense corridor trembled beneath Lyra's boots as the forward station absorbed another impact. Dust separated from the ceiling seams and drifted through the reduced gravity field, turning slowly beneath the emergency lights. Her visor filtered the scene through multiple sensor layers. Thermal signatures, structural stress, electromagnetic distortion. The armor displayed 3 hostile contacts beyond the damaged barrier. Then it adjusted, a fraction too slowly. Contact movement changed, Lieutenant Saran reported. Lyra already saw it. The enemy formation had shifted away from the predicted route. The armor recalculated. New probability. New response. She moved. A projectile struck the corridor wall beside her. The impact sent a vibration through the floor plating and scattered fragments across the passage. Her armor redirected energy from secondary shielding to reinforce the damaged section. The system recorded the exchange. Shielding efficiency reduced. Power consumption increased. A controlled trade. Acceptable. Lyra continued forward. Her squad followed. The tactical display marked 2 injured soldiers behind the damaged barrier. The most efficient choice was to eliminate the remaining threats first. The probability was clear. The order was also clear. Secure the wounded. The squad hesitated for less than a second, long enough for the armor to mark the decision as inefficient. Lyra ignored the recommendation. She crossed the exposed section. The damaged structure groaned beneath her weight. Her armor sensors detected stress movement inside the support frame, but the prediction model classified the collapse risk as minimal. Then the frame shifted. Not enough to break. Enough to prove the model wrong. Lyra reached the injured soldier and pulled him away from the unstable section. The armor compensated. Power redirected. Movement slowed. A cost. Accepted. The soldier survived. The corridor remained standing. But Lyra noticed the pattern. The armor had not failed because it lacked information. It had failed because the information did not fit the expectation. A second impact struck the outer wall. The station shook harder. Beyond the damaged corridor, a human signal appeared. Unknown equipment profile. Unknown tactical value. Lyra turned toward the source. A human soldier crouched beside an open equipment case near a collapsed service passage. His armor was functional, but outdated. Multiple repair seams crossed the plating. Several components had clearly been replaced outside a proper facility. He should not have been operating in that environment. He should have been searching for extraction. Instead, he was repairing a damaged field unit. Identify yourself, Lyra transmitted. The human looked toward her. Daniel Reyes. Combat engineering support. His voice was calm, not confident, not defensive, focused. Lyra scanned his equipment. No advanced intrusion tools. No unknown energy source. No technology that explained the situation. Daniel adjusted a damaged connector inside the device housing. The field unit stabilized. The armor analyzed the action. Mechanical input. Manual correction. Improvised adjustment. The result appeared. Operational recovery probability. Higher than expected. Lyra looked at the human. The numbers did not make sense. Not because he had done something impossible. Because he had done something the system had never considered important. He had noticed a failure before the failure happened. And for the first time during the mission, Lyra's armor returned a message without a clear tactical answer. Unknown behavioral variable. Daniel Reyes did not look like someone who had changed a battlefield. That was exactly why Lyra kept watching him. The damaged field unit remained open on the maintenance table inside the temporary operations shelter. Its casing was scratched. Several internal components had been replaced with parts from different human systems. The design was not elegant. It was functional. The distinction mattered. Outside the shelter, the defense corridor continued its slow decline. Structural monitoring drones moved along damaged sections, projecting repair estimates that changed every few minutes. The station was not collapsing. It was adapting. Poorly. Lyra stood beside the equipment while her armor reviewed Daniel's previous actions. The system had categorized the repair attempt as improvised behavior. That classification bothered her. Improvised suggested random. Daniel's work had not been random. You adjusted the regulator before checking the full diagnostic output. Daniel tightened a connection inside the unit. The diagnostic output was already wrong. Lyra looked at the display. The system reported instability. It reported the result. Daniel pointed toward the damaged component. I needed the cause. The answer was simple. The distinction was not. Her armor highlighted the same section Daniel had touched. A small pressure irregularity. A minor deviation. A detail the system had marked as insignificant. Lyra accessed the sensor history. The deviation had existed for 14 minutes before the failure event. The armor had recorded it, then ignored it. Not because it missed the data, because the model ranked the probability too low. Daniel closed the panel. The device returned to temporary operation. The repair was not permanent. The power draw remained unstable. The system displayed the limitation. Expected operational time reduced. Lyra noticed Daniel reading the same warning. You accepted a reduced lifespan. Daniel placed the tool back into his kit. I accepted that it was better than zero. The response matched his earlier choices. Short-term survival. Long-term consequence. A trade, not a solution. A station alarm interrupted the conversation. A maintenance route had lost environmental stability. The automated repair system had isolated the area to prevent further damage. Lyra checked the route map. The isolation protected the central systems. It also trapped 2 maintenance workers. Daniel moved toward the access point. Lyra stopped him. The area is sealed. I noticed. The answer was calm. He was already examining the panel beside the door, not trying to override it. Looking at it, the difference was clear. The access system showed a maintenance failure indicator. Daniel touched the outer housing. Pressure changed after the seal closed. Lyra checked the internal sensors. The readings showed normal conditions. Then her armor adjusted the scan. A secondary measurement appeared. The internal pressure was stable. The outer structure was not. The door had sealed correctly. The system had simply protected the wrong problem. Lyra opened a restricted maintenance channel. The action was within emergency authority. The seal released. The trapped workers escaped. The access system recorded a manual intervention. Another efficiency reduction. Another successful outcome. Daniel looked at the report. Your systems are good at preventing damage. Lyra studied the data. They are designed for that. Yeah. He looked back at the failing corridor. But they assume they know what damage looks like. Lyra did not answer. Because the statement was incomplete. And because it was accurate. A message appeared on her armor. Command request. Immediate transfer of human subject Daniel Reyes for security evaluation. The order carried official authorization. The reason was clear. A human engineer had interacted with a Valkyrie system in a way no model could explain. Lyra looked at the damaged equipment on the table. Then at Daniel. He noticed the change in her posture. They decided. Yes. The answer was brief. Are you following the order? Lyra checked the authorization level. The correct response was obvious. The practical response was less clear. Daniel was not a threat assessment. Not yet. He was evidence. And evidence became dangerous when people decided what it meant before understanding it. Lyra transmitted her reply, requesting temporary technical containment status. Not detention. Not release. Observation. The response arrived immediately. Denied. Her access to the investigation archive changed at the same moment. Restricted. Lyra watched the notification disappear. For the first time, she was not studying a human anomaly. She was studying a familiar pattern. A system making a choice, and refusing to question why. The investigation room was designed for certainty. Lyra Vare noticed the contradiction immediately. The chamber contained everything the Varen military valued. Controlled temperature, stable power, complete sensor access. every variable recorded and categorized. Daniel Reyes sat across from the analysis table with his repaired field equipment beside him. Not as a prisoner, not as a guest, a restricted technical subject. The distinction mattered. Lyra had requested that status herself. The decision protected the investigation. It also placed Daniel under her authority. That responsibility remained hers. The armor logs appeared above the table. 3 separate recordings. 3 different incidents. The battlefield adjustment. The maintenance failure. The emergency seal release. The pattern was visible. Daniel had not accessed protected systems. He had not altered command protocols. He had identified conditions the systems had already measured but classified as irrelevant. Lyra reviewed the data again. The armor returned the same conclusion. No unauthorized technology detected. No external interference detected. No explanation. That final result bothered her. Your equipment cannot read variant systems. Daniel looked at the projection. Not completely. The answer was different from what she expected. You admit that. I'm not trying to understand everything. Daniel pointed toward the armor logs. I'm trying to understand what it does when something goes wrong. Lyra studied him. That was the difference. Variant analysis began with expected performance. Daniel began with failure behavior. A small distinction. A significant one. She opened the maintenance access records. The armor had created a temporary diagnostic pathway during the first incident. A safety feature, not a vulnerability. The system had done exactly what it was designed to do. The problem was what happened afterward. The prediction model had classified Daniel's actions incorrectly. The armor believed the maintenance interaction came from a trained variant operator. It did not recognize the human decision process behind it. Lyra looked at the result. A misclassification, not a breach. The distinction changed everything. A breach required stronger defenses. A misclassification required understanding the assumptions behind the system. A warning appeared. External command request. The Strategic Council required preliminary findings. Lyra prepared the report. The official version was simple. Human soldier Daniel Reyes had not penetrated Valkyrie armor security. He had exposed a gap between system interpretation and real-world behavior. The wording was accurate. It was also dangerous, because it challenged a belief older than the armor itself. The report transmission paused. Lyra could remove the uncertainty. She could describe the event as a rare technical anomaly. The problem would become smaller. The consequences would become easier to manage. Her hand remained above the interface. Then she sent the complete data. The response came within minutes. Additional review required. Access permissions adjusted. Again, the system had reacted, not with a weapon, with restriction. Daniel watched the permission notice. They don't like uncertainty. Lyra closed the display. Neither do you. He considered that, then looked back at the equipment case. I'm trying to understand it. The room remained quiet except for the analysis systems processing the new data. Lyra continued reviewing the logs. The human was not the weakness. The armor was not the weakness. The assumption connecting them was the weakness. A priority message arrived from the command network. All non-essential investigations suspended. Daniel's transfer order remained active. Lyra looked at the authorization. The order was legal. The concern was legitimate. The situation had changed. She could follow the procedure. Or she could continue gathering information before the system closed the only path to understanding the failure. She chose the second. Not because she trusted Daniel. Not yet. Because the evidence demanded more time. The decision carried an immediate consequence. Her access to Valkyrie research channels was reduced again. The investigation became unofficial. The human remained restricted. The armor remained unexplained. And Lyra Vare had taken her first step outside the system that had defined her. The council did not accuse Lyra Vare of failure. That would have been easier. Failure was a clear event. A damaged system. A lost objective. A measurable mistake. Instead, they questioned judgment. The review chamber displayed 3 layers of information above the central table. Valkyrie performance data. Field reports. Human interaction records. Each section told part of the story. None told all of it. Admiral Cale Oren stood at the far end of the chamber. The investigation exceeded its approved scope. Lyra remained still. The approved scope could not explain the event. Several council members exchanged silent signals. Not disagreement. Assessment. The political structure of Vera did not react through arguments first. It reacted through procedure. Scientific representatives requested continued study. Security representatives requested immediate containment. Civil administrators requested public stability. 3 priorities. 3 directions. No single answer. Kale looked toward the data projection. The human soldier remains an unknown factor. Lyra reviewed the record. His actions remain consistent with field engineering. His actions affected military technology. Because the technology misclassified his actions, the chamber became quieter. Not because the statement won the discussion, because it created a question nobody wanted to answer quickly. The council authorized a temporary restriction. Daniel Reyes would remain available for technical observation. The investigation would continue under Varen's supervision. No technology exchange. No public announcement. No accusation. A compromise. A political solution designed to prevent escalation. Lyra accepted. It was not the outcome she wanted. It was the outcome the system could support. Later, she entered the maintenance sector where Daniel was reviewing damaged human equipment. He looked up when she arrived. Still restricted? Yes. The answer was direct. No explanation followed. Daniel returned to the equipment. The distance between them remained. That was appropriate. Lyra had prevented his transfer. She had not earned his trust. The difference mattered. A diagnostic alert appeared from the maintenance network. One of the recovered Valkyrie components had entered unstable testing mode. Lyra moved toward the terminal. Daniel followed after a brief hesitation. Not because they were allies. Because both understood the same problem. The data required 2 perspectives. The component analysis displayed unusual behavior. The armor interface had created a temporary maintenance pathway during the battlefield incident. The pathway was valid. The security system had worked. The interpretation layer had failed. Daniel studied the output. The system did what it was supposed to do. Lyra looked at him. Yes. The answer surprised him slightly. She continued analyzing. It protected the operator. The next data point appeared. It did not understand the operator. Daniel looked back at the screen. That was the closest they had come to agreement. Not trust. Not friendship. A shared observation. The test continued. The component performed normally under controlled conditions. Then the researchers introduced incomplete battlefield data. The response changed. The failure did not repeat. It almost did. That was enough. The scientists recorded the result. The prediction model was not broken. It was limited by the information it considered meaningful. A message arrived. Security review complete. The council required all future tests to remain supervised. Additional restrictions were added. The investigation became slower. More controlled. More difficult. Daniel looked at the updated authorization list. Harder now. Lyra closed the file. Safer. The answer was true. And incomplete. Every additional restriction protected Vera from risk. Every additional restriction also reduced the chance of understanding the problem. Outside the chamber, the station continued operating under strain. Power distribution remained stable, but several outer systems had entered reduced function mode. Maintenance teams adjusted priorities manually because automated systems continued choosing efficiency over uncertainty. Lyra reviewed the reports. The pattern was becoming larger. Not only armor, not only Daniel. A broader relationship between systems and unpredictable conditions. The next step required evidence, not assumptions. The council approved one final test. A controlled armor update. A solution based on improved prediction. Lyra authorized the procedure. Not because she believed the problem was solved. Because the only remaining path was to test the belief she still carried. That a better system could correct the system's own limitation. The upgraded armor began preparation. And somewhere inside the model, the same unanswered variable remained waiting. The upgraded armor performed exactly as expected. For 23 minutes. That was enough time for the research team to confirm the results. The previous inconsistencies had disappeared. The new prediction model processed incoming data faster. It adjusted responses sooner. It produced the tactical precision expected from a Valkyrie system. Lyra stood on the testing platform while the interface connected to her armor. The chamber remained controlled. Stable gravity. Regulated temperature. Clean sensor feeds. Every condition matched the environment where the upgrade was designed to succeed. The armor understood this place. That was the first indication that the test was incomplete. Lyra moved through the simulation. Threat patterns appeared. The armor predicted them before they developed. Movement paths formed across her visor. Countermeasures followed. The system responded with the precision that had defined Valkyrie operations for generations. Behind the observation barrier, researchers monitored the data. No one celebrated. The results were still being measured. A structural failure appeared in the simulation. Then a rescue marker entered the combat zone. The armor calculated. Threat elimination. Resource preservation. Survival probability. The recommended action appeared. Lyra followed the path. The simulation ended. Failure. The rescue marker disappeared. The chamber remained silent. The research team reviewed the sequence. They adjusted the variables. They ran it again. The outcome changed. The result did not. The armor continued, choosing the same category of solution. Lyra studied the data. The upgraded system had not failed because it lacked information. It had failed because it interpreted information through the same framework. The model had improved. The assumption had not. Daniel stood near the analysis console. He watched the simulation record. You expected this. Daniel looked at the failed scenario. I expected the pattern. The difference mattered. Lyra examined the prediction model. The system was not ignoring possible actions. It was removing them before they became decisions. The model had learned from centuries of Varen combat behavior. Structured engagements. Calculated risks. Defined objectives. The database contained countless tactical choices. It contained very few decisions where an operator accepted personal loss without a direct advantage. The researchers changed the simulation. A new scenario began. Lyra entered again. The same limitation appeared. Another adjustment. The same result. The armor remained consistent. That was the problem. A warning interrupted the test. External Defense Network Priority Alert. The eastern sector had come under attack. The chamber doors unlocked. The upgrade moved from evaluation to deployment preparation. The research team worked quickly. Lyra remained on the platform. The answer was no longer hidden. The armor was not defective. The model was not corrupted. The system was performing according to the logic it had been given. The deployment request appeared. Two options remained. Use the upgraded system, the most advanced configuration available, or return to the older system with known limitations. Neither option offered certainty. The older armor carried predictable risks. The upgraded armor carried unknown ones. Lyra selected deployment, not because she trusted the system, because the battlefield would reveal what the chamber could not. The decision carried an immediate consequence. The prediction model entered a real environment. A system built around controlled patterns. A battlefield built around changing conditions. Daniel transmitted the field observations through the restricted channel. The information reached Lyra's armor, not as a solution, as additional data. The system accepted the input, then continued calculating. Outside the facility, Vera's defense network prepared for impact. Inside the armor, the prediction model searched through possibilities it had never been designed to recognize. Lyra stepped forward. The first warning appeared before the first strike. Not from the enemy, from her own system. Prediction confidence decreasing. The armor was not broken. It was encountering a battlefield larger than its assumptions. The upgraded armor survived the first engagement. The operators did not. Lyra saw the difference immediately. The prediction model continued functioning, but every adjustment carried uncertainty. The battlefield no longer matched the controlled environment where the upgrade had succeeded. Vera's eastern defense sector had become a network of failing systems. Not destroyed. Unstable. Gravity regulators shifted between sections. Communication relays operated with increasing delay. Repair drones moved through damaged corridors, prioritizing according to incomplete information. The station was still alive. It was simply no longer predictable. Lyra moved through the lower defense levels with her squad behind her. Her armor displayed tactical recommendations. 3 possible routes. 3 survival estimates. None reached acceptable confidence. A warning appeared. Prediction reliability reduced. She continued. A support corridor opened ahead. The sensors showed a clear passage. Then Daniel's voice came through the shared channel. Stop. Lyra paused. Not because of the command. Because of the reason. Daniel's field equipment displayed a structural scan. His device was not more advanced. It was measuring something different. The corridor's support frame had shifted beyond normal tolerance. Lyra adjusted her armor sensors. The information appeared. Delayed. The structure was already failing. She changed direction. The decision cost time. The original route would have been faster. it also would have collapsed. The armor recorded the result. Alternative path selected. Efficiency reduced. Survival probability increased. The contradiction remained. They reached the damaged coordination hub, where human and Varen units were trapped behind separate security barriers. The automated network had isolated both sections, protecting central systems, leaving outer sectors without support. Lyra accessed the command layer. The system rejected the request. Her authorization remained active. The network simply considered the action too risky. Daniel examined the interface beside her. It is protecting the highest value systems. Lyra looked at the trapped units. The lower value sectors are still occupied. The statement was not an argument. It was a fact. She opened a secondary maintenance channel. The route was slower, less secure, available. Together, they restored partial communication. Not full control. Enough. The trapped teams coordinated their own evacuation. The process took longer than a centralized response. It also prevented additional losses. When the final group reached safety, the damage reports arrived. 2 Valkyrie units required major armor reconstruction. Several human soldiers suffered injuries during evacuation. The defense network lost another section of automated coordination. The choice worked. The cost remained. That evening, the official review began. The council received 3 reports. The first described armor performance. The second described defense failure. The third described Lyra's decision to override automated recommendations. None produced a simple conclusion. Admiral Kale reviewed the data privately. When he contacted Lyra, his expression remained controlled. The system did not fail. Lyra looked at the damaged armor interface. No, the report was already visible. It reached a limit. Kale did not argue. That was not agreement. It was acknowledgement of evidence. The political consequence arrived afterward. Lyra's battlefield authority was reduced pending investigation. Not removed. Restricted. A distinction designed to preserve stability while preventing further unauthorized decisions. The order was reasonable. It still carried weight. Lyra returned to the maintenance sector where Daniel reviewed the damaged equipment logs. The human device beside him showed several temporary repairs. Some would need replacement. Some would fail soon. Nothing had been restored perfectly. Daniel noticed the restriction notice on her interface. Limited access. Lyra placed the report beside the equipment. Temporary. He looked at the document, then at the damaged components. No comment followed. The distance between them remained. The situation had become larger than either of them. The armor had not been defeated. The human had not solved the war. A system had encountered conditions outside the boundaries it was built around, and everyone connected to it had to operate inside those boundaries. Lyra looked toward the damaged defense network. For the first time, the problem was no longer finding the missing answer. It was deciding what to do after discovering the answer was uncomfortable. The investigation did not remove Lyra from command. It changed what command meant. Her authority remained available for emergencies. Her access required additional review. Every tactical decision entered a second evaluation process before reaching the field network. The system was doing exactly what Varen institutions were designed to do. Reduce individual risk. Prevent individual failure. Lyra understood the reasoning. That made it harder to reject. The new restrictions followed her through every report, every request, every operational update. The armor interface displayed fewer permissions. Several research channels became inaccessible. The same system she had trusted now limited her ability to act. Not because it considered her wrong, because it considered uncertainty dangerous. The eastern sectors continued degrading. Power distribution became uneven. Maintenance teams abandoned automated priorities and began working from local conditions. The defense network remained functional, only through constant intervention. Lyra reviewed another field report. A supply route had been sealed because the system calculated a structural risk. The calculation was correct. The decision was still harmful. The route contained medical supplies. The system had protected the structure. It had not protected the people inside it. Lyra closed the report. The pattern had become impossible to ignore. Her own earlier belief had created part of the problem. A perfect system prevented mistakes, but a system that could not recognize changing conditions created different ones. Daniel found her near the maintenance archive. He carried the human field sensor module that had helped identify previous failures. Its outer casing was damaged. The device was still operating. You lost access. Lyra looked at the module. You noticed. The station changed its behavior. She accepted the answer. Daniel connected the sensor to the archive terminal. Not to access restricted information. To compare environmental readings. The difference appeared immediately. The station systems measured stability. The human equipment measured change. Both were accurate. They were looking for different things. A new alert appeared. Defense coordination request. A critical synchronization sequence had failed. The automated system had isolated the affected network section. Again, protecting the larger structure, leaving the smaller section without support. Lyra accessed the control layer. Permission denied. The restriction was active. She could request authorization. The process would take time. Time the affected sector did not have. Daniel looked at the interface. The maintenance layer is still available. Lyra understood. The same type of access that had revealed the armor issue. The same type of decision that had created political consequences before. She hesitated. Not because she lacked authority. Because she understood the cost. Using the maintenance layer would bypass normal review. It would confirm the Council's concern. A system built around control would see another individual choice as another risk. The affected sector sent a final status update. Environmental support declining. Lyra connected. The system accepted the request, then triggered a security response. Multiple secondary functions entered protective mode. The synchronization process slowed. The failure expanded. Lyra watched the consequences appear across the display. She had not solved the problem. She had created another. Daniel adjusted the sensor feed. The system reacted to the access. Lyra looked at the network map. Yes. Her answer carried no defense. The mistake belonged to her. She had recognized the limits of the system, then repeated the same pattern. She had tried to force a better outcome through control. The defense network entered emergency isolation. Several outer sectors lost coordination. No lives were immediately lost. That made the result harder to ignore. The damage was measurable, preventable. Her decision had created it. Later, the official review was shorter. The evidence required less explanation. Lyra had acted outside the approved process. Her reasoning was understandable. Her action was still a violation. The Council reduced her emergency authority. The Valkyrie command insignia on her armor remained active. Its permissions did not. Lyra stood alone in the maintenance sector after the review. The damaged defense network continued operating around her. Systems failed. People repaired them. Reports arrived. Decisions waited. For years, she had believed responsibility meant having the correct answer. Now she faced a different reality. Responsibility also meant carrying the result when the answer was wrong. The final defense sequence required a manual synchronization. No automated approval. No perfect prediction. No certainty. Only a decision. And Lyra no longer had the authority to pretend uncertainty could be removed before action was required. The final synchronization request arrived without priority classification. That was the problem. The system could not decide. Every remaining sector carried a different risk profile. Every possible action created another failure. The Eastern Defense Network had reached a point where prediction became less useful than response. Lyra stood inside the central control chamber wearing the damaged Valkyrie armor. Not the upgraded configuration. Not the original system. A reduced version. The prediction layer remained offline. The neural support modules operated at limited capacity. Her armor still protected her. It simply no longer removed every uncertainty. The chamber reflected the condition of the network. Power conduits carried reduced output. Control surfaces displayed manual warnings. The air filtration system struggled to maintain balance as damaged sections redirected resources. Daniel connected the human field sensor to the emergency interface. The device took longer than Varent systems. It provided information the Varent systems did not. Primary defense cell can stabilize the network. Lyra looked at the energy report. The calculation was already visible. The defense cell had enough reserve power. Once, after activation, the component would exceed recovery limits. A permanent loss. The core that supported Valkyrie defensive operations for decades would be destroyed. Daniel checked the remaining options. There is no replacement. Lyra knew. The information had been available before he said it. That was why the decision mattered. The system presented two outcomes. Preserve the defense core. Allow several outer sectors to lose environmental support. Use the core. Maintain wider stability. damage a strategic component beyond repair. The choice was not between success and failure. It was between different losses. The command channel opened. Admiral Kale appeared through unstable communication. His authorization remained active. His recommendation remained unchanged. Preserve the core. Lyra looked at the affected sectors. She understood his position. The calculation was logical. The consequence was visible. She disconnected from the command channel, not rejecting authority, making a decision. Lyra transferred control to manual operation. Her armor responded immediately. Warning. Prediction assistance unavailable. Neural workload increasing. The interface changed. The suit no longer suggested movement. It no longer corrected timing. Every adjustment required direct input. The cost arrived quickly. Pain moved through the neural connection as the armor compensated without prediction support. Sensor feedback slowed. Reaction assistance decreased. The system recorded permanent strain risk. Lyra continued. Daniel monitored the external load. The defense cell temperature increased. The chamber lights dimmed as energy redirected across the network. Several non-essential systems shut down automatically. The station became quieter, not safer, focused. Lyra moved power allocation manually. Each choice created another reduction. Communication capacity decreased. Shield efficiency decreased. Reserve energy decreased. The network stabilized one sector at a time. The final transfer remained. The defense core. The component that represented Varen's strategic superiority. The component that would not survive the required output. Lyra authorized the transfer. The energy flow changed. The core temperature rose beyond recovery limits. The system displayed final warnings. Component failure irreversible. She continued. The defense network recovered. The outer sectors regained environmental control. The emergency isolation ended. The defense core shut down permanently. No alarm followed. No dramatic signal. Only a final status report. Unavailable. The word remained on the display. A simple record of the cost. The command channel reopened. Admiral Kale reviewed the final data. He did not apologize. He did not praise her. The decision had not erased the previous disagreement. It had created new evidence. The system survived because a critical part of it had been allowed to fail. Lyra removed her hand from the interface. Her armor reported reduced neural compatibility. The damage would require permanent adaptation. The Valkyrie system would never function exactly as before. Neither would she. Daniel looked at the final network status. The human sensor continued recording. A damaged system. A functioning system. Both at once. Outside the chamber, Vera remained under emergency conditions. Repairs continued. Questions remained. The war was not finished. The politics were not resolved. But the defense network no longer operated on the assumption that every answer could be calculated before someone had to choose. The review of the Valkyrie system lasted longer than the battle that exposed its weakness. That was how Varen institutions worked. A weapon could fail in seconds. A civilization needed months to decide what that failure meant. 6 months after the Eastern Defense Incident, the Strategic Council released the final findings. The report did not declare the armor defective. It did not declare the Valkyrie doctrine obsolete. The findings were more difficult. The system had performed within its design. The design had been incomplete. Lyra read the document from a smaller chamber beneath the rebuilt command center. Her armor interface displayed the same limitations it had carried since the incident. Reduced prediction assistance. Permanent neural strain adjustment. Lower combat efficiency. The system recorded every restriction. She kept every one. Across Vera, the response was divided. Some citizens demanded immediate reform. Others believed the changes weakened a defense structure that had protected them for generations. The debate continued through public channels, military forums, and scientific councils. No announcement changed the population overnight. No individual carried the answer. The evidence had created a conversation. The conversation would take time. Admiral Kale Oren remained in command. His position had not been removed. His authority had not disappeared. The review found no misconduct in his original decisions. He had protected Varen interests using the information available to him. The difference was that the information was no longer the same. The updated Valkyrie program introduced controlled changes. Human field analysis methods were added to failure evaluation procedures. Maintenance observations received greater priority. Prediction systems remained. They were no longer treated as complete. The first trial reports were still uncertain. Some Valkyries resisted. Some human commanders questioned the limits of cooperation. Trust moved slowly. That was expected. Daniel Reyes returned to human service. His official record changed slightly. Not a hero designation. Not a special rank. A technical advisory role. The description matched what he had always done, finding problems before they became disasters. The role carried new pressure. Every human field report connected to Varen technology now received additional review. Every mistake became part of a larger political argument. Daniel accepted the responsibility. He returned to Vera months later during a joint maintenance review. The rebuilt sector looked different. Not because Varen technology had become less advanced. Because the structure now included places for failure, manual access points, independent monitoring, human-designed inspection procedures. Small changes, practical ones. Lyra met him near the maintenance corridor. The distance between them remained professional. It should have. Their cooperation had survived pressure. It had not erased the conflict that created it. Daniel looked at the armor interface. Still running with reduced prediction. Lyra checked the status panel. Still necessary. He nodded. The answer was enough. A maintenance team passed nearby carrying damaged components from a recently failed system. The technicians stopped at Lyra's station. The model marked this as low priority. Lyra reviewed the data. The failure probability was low. The consequence was not. She adjusted the evaluation order. Include the environmental variance. The technician updated the record. A small correction. A different habit. The moment passed quickly. That was how systems changed. Not through one perfect decision. Through thousands of smaller ones. Later, the Valkyrie archives added a note to the original armor incident. The official language remained technical. A predictive interpretation failure during a battlefield maintenance event. That was accurate. It was also incomplete. The human soldier had not defeated Varen technology. The Valkyrie had not been defeated by a stronger opponent. A system built to understand threats had encountered something outside its assumptions. An ordinary human engineer had noticed the difference because his work had always existed where systems failed. And a Valkyrie commander had changed because she chose to carry the cost of that discovery. Above Vera, human and Varen vessels continued separate patrol routes. The alliance was not complete. The distrust was not gone. The future remained uncertain. But their communication networks now exchanged more than commands. They exchanged failures, warnings, corrections, information that existed because both civilizations had accepted something their old systems resisted. Some answers arrived only after someone was willing to admit the system had never contained all of them. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If you were in Lyra's position, would you sacrifice a perfect system to save the people it was built to protect? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Galactic Contact for more stories beyond the stars.